Hey, welcome into the Arky Shea experience. My name is Arky Shea. We are joined by Demetri Ravanos. Demetri, hello.
Hello, Arky.
And we're joined by one Cole Cubelic. Cole, what's up, playa?
Is the video of this going out or just the audio?
I don't know. I'm gonna see how it looks when we're done with this. So you may want to keep the pants on for the most part of this. Wait till
don't tell the deputy of fashion for the LA Times that. He'll be upset.
I saw that. Do you realize that dude doesn't even have a fashion background? He's just some guy they said, write about what people wear.
That's why he's a deputy and
Fair.
Not a sheriff.
Fair.
No, he's not the sheriff of fashion for the LA Times.
When was the last time anybody put pants on of the three of us?
I don't know, but he had a damn carnival hat on, like one of those flat bill, like trio singer from the 50s on the boardwalk in New Jersey hats on.
You took your kids to Disney recently, right? He looks like a Dapper Dan.
Yeah, I'm like, this guy is telling me not to wear sweatpants. Okay, good.
Man, the reason we had Cole on, by the way, the reason Cole asked that is because we're now this is our first ever sort of Zoom meeting that we're doing here. And I'm not sure what we're going to do.
It's a historic broadcast.
It is. You know what I appreciate? That Demetri and I have our names on the bottom of our screens here. And Cole is always branding at Cole Cubelic. Yeah,
I think that's brilliant.
It's all about
not my name. I mean, that's all I know my name is.
Oh, I'd like to see the birth certificate where I almost said ampersand. I don't know what that is. The @ symbol. What is the @ symbol called?
At.
Yeah, the @ symbol.
Sweet. Good talk, guys. More punctuation talk after this.
That's right.
Okay, now we're doing this episode specifically for Michael Jordan. We want him to hear this because we watched the first two parts of a 10-part series with Michael Jordan called The Last Dance, which I had no idea it was basically Phil Jackson's name for his last season with Michael Jordan in 97-98. So let's just go with initial impressions. I'll start with the guest at Cole Cubelic. Cole, I know you're a Jordan guy. You like Michael Jordan. You wear a lot of the shoes. In fact, you even wore shoes specifically for the show last night, or I guess Sunday night.
But you know what's funny about it is when I was in high school and the Bulls were at their peak, I wasn't. I was anti-Michael Jordan, anti-Chicago Bulls because it was maybe the easiest sports bandwagon to jump on planet Earth. And for me at the time, I was anti-anything like that. And so, but what's weird about it is you had so much respect and it was so cool to watch. You couldn't realistically by yourself cheer against him and cheer against that team based on what they were doing. So I thought there were so many things about last night that were interesting. The behind the scenes access. Let's just start with the access because we're just coming off this XFL 3/4, half of a season, whatever we had, where we're interviewing guys on the sideline. Coaches are mic'd up. Cameras are in the locker rooms. We're talking to players literally 5 seconds after they throw an interception. This did not exist in 1997 and 1998.
Plus, Cole, think about what we've had here lately. The horse tournament, the Madden tournament. I mean, there is no
Sam Darnold saying he's seeing ghosts on the sideline. I mean, that wasn't supposed to really get out, but we had it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like right now, we're in this world where everything is about access to these guys.
It's people, guys, think about college basketball players right now. They weren't even able to witness Kobe and Shaq.
Yep.
Much less Jordan and Pippen. They don't understand what this was like, and they don't understand the lack of access that was around. And to be granted this for us that did witness it and did watch it is completely next level. And I think what you do is then you take that and you sort of spin that into the celebrity portion of this. And you think about how different celebrity was then and how different celebrity is now. And I think you can then expand upon that and say, how different are we going to look at our favorite athletes 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now, as opposed to the way we looked at Michael Jordan? Because that era, and maybe even a little bit after him, was probably where that breed began to die, where we knew 3 Michael Jordans when he was doing what we watched last night. We knew on the court Michael Jordan, we knew press conference Michael Jordan, and we knew advertising Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
be it Nike, Gatorade, Wheaties, whatever else, Hanes, whatever else. Those were the only 3 Michael Jordans we knew. We didn't know cooking with his wife in his kitchen, Michael Jordan. We didn't know walking to the arena gear that he was wearing, Michael Jordan. We didn't know shoe collection in his closet, Michael Jordan. Last night was the first time I've ever seen him interact with his children. We knew he had kids. I had never seen that before.
Yeah.
Now, so now we can go watch Steph Curry hang out with his wife in their kitchen and they can cook. LeBron James is doing TikTok videos with his kids and screaming about Taco Tuesday. You can go see what Russell Westbrook's wearing every day of his life. You can go see what is in Kevin Durant's garage. All you got to do is flip these guys' Instagram stories and you know everything about them. Everything. That doesn't even include tabloids, TMZ, what other people are saying and doing on social media, trying to cover them, Sports Center, walking into the arena, access that we already get from all these other entities. There's almost nothing that we don't know about today's superstar. And to look back and to get that kind of access on the superstar, the man, the alpha, the athlete of our generation, and get that kind of access, it's unprecedented. And it's amazing to think about how different it was then, how different it is now, and maybe how different it's going to be down the road.
As I was talking to a client today
Arky,
who does –
sit this one out. You're good.
Yeah, well, hold on. I want to get to Demetri because I'm going to ask him next. But before we talk about this, before we finish up this access point, the guy who filmed this for the 97-98 season, I think just gave an interview where he said he's been sitting on this for over 20 years because Adam Silver, who was the head of the NBA entertainment division, said, we will not air any of this. No one will have access to any part of this unless you give the okay. And so Jordan gives the okay finally, and now we have finally that unprecedented access to where
that's why I think right now that because people are already having the discussion this versus the OJ documentary, and that's why I think already this is better than the OJ documentary, which is damn near impossible to do because the OJ story is the biggest sports story of our lifetimes, and it's really not debatable. You can talk about Tiger Woods and what happened that night at his home with those 7-iron or whatever, but OJ is the biggest sports story of our lifetimes, maybe in the history of sports. So to be able to give that access, those behind the scenes footage and interviews of that story is going to be difficult to overcome. You've got Phil Jackson sitting down. You've got Jerry Reinsdorf sitting down. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, John Paxson, Steve Kerr. Think about what Steve Kerr is now.
Yeah.
We know what he was then, but think what he has done in the last 5 or 6 years. All of these people sitting down, opening up, discussing something that we had at best limited access to 25 years ago. That makes this, in my mind, maybe the greatest sports documentary that we're going to ever see.
It's been 2 episodes.
And that's all I need.
Along those lines of what Steve Kerr is right now, I was talking to a client who does morning radio out in San Francisco. I guess by the time you're seeing this, it will be yesterday. And he said, I was 4 during the year that this was going on, so I really didn't have context for it. I can't see them being any different than the Warriors during their run or Jordan being any different than Steph Curry. And I will always say, like, as time goes on and training gets better, of course those Warriors teams could beat those Bulls teams. It is just the difference in basketball now versus then. The difference with those teams, though, and particularly between Steph and Jordan, is exactly what you're talking about, Cole. There's no mystery around Steph the way there was around all of those guys from the 97-98 Bulls, and they're never going to be – so Steph could never be an icon in the way those guys were.
I heard it best on Scott Van Pelt's SportsCenter last night. He interviewed Steve Kerr, and he asked Steve Kerr about the difference of celebrity then and now. And Steve Kerr said there was something mythical about Michael and our team.
Yeah.
And he said one of the biggest differences was you could get away from it then. We could leave it if we wanted to. We could go away easily. And he said, these guys can't go away now. Everyone wants to know where they are, what they're doing, who they're with, how they're doing it. And they are celebrities in a different way, not just sports. They're societal celebrities now. And that makes people watch you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But that mythical aspect took them to folk hero level. Steph Curry is not on folk hero level.
No.
LeBron James is the closest thing to Michael Jordan that we have right now. He is the closest thing to being a folk hero in the NBA. These Bulls were that. The team was that. And then Michael Jordan was that. Maybe Pippen to a smaller extent. But Michael Jordan brought in so many different parts of that, being the walking away for baseball, what he did with his shoe contract, the Gatorade commercials, the Nike commercials, the Wheaties commercials. I mean, Ice Cube's got Jordan quotes, "You better eat your Wheaties" in his songs. This Michael Jordan was generational as far as everything that he did. And that mythical aspect of what that team was, in my opinion, puts them ahead of any of these other NBA guys that we're going to talk about. And if you want to talk about just winning championships, I thought Mike Wilbon had a great quote last night when he said Michael Jordan was the alpha. He was the alpha of sports. And I think he said Muhammad Ali and Babe Ruth were the only two guys that he ever heard even be mentioned in that discussion. Think about how many alphas were in the NBA when Michael Jordan was playing. I mean, just look at that Celtics team that we talked about. Bill Walton, Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, Larry Bird, all on the same team. Now, whoa, 1 second.
All right.
Think about the teams that were title worthy that didn't get one during that Bulls run. Karl Malone was an alpha. Utah was a title worthy team. How many of those Portland teams were title worthy with Drexel and Porter and the other guys that they have? The Houston teams got some, but they should have gotten more. There's no doubt about it. Patrick Ewing was an alpha. Those Knicks teams were more than title worthy.
Leave it alone.
Barkley's Suns were title worthy. Barkley was an alpha in that league. Some people would tell you that Isaiah was the alpha. I think Joe Dumars was the alpha of that team. And the Pistons were probably more title worthy than what they actually won in their run under Chuck. You look at Magic Johnson and what he was able to do. He was the alpha of that Lakers team. They deserve more titles than they got. You're talking about seasons 5, 6, maybe 7 teams deep that were legitimately title worthy during the Jordan run with the Bulls. I don't know if you could ever go more than 3 deep with any championship team in the last, 8 to 10 years in the NBA. It's always been what team is LeBron on in the East and then 2 teams from the West.
I don't disagree with you there.
Golden State or somebody else.
I don't disagree with you there. In fact, we've talked before, like, what was it last week, Arky? I think we were talking about how far back you have to go just to see a 3 seed even make it to the NBA Finals these days. I will tell you, so I grew up and am still a huge Celtics fan. When Jordan started winning titles, those teams were no longer title worthy. They weren't. You had a broken Larry Bird. You had an old Robert Parrish at that point. I'm not taking away from the fact that the league was certainly deeper than it is now. I do think there was a very definitive passing of the torch of all these great teams, the bad boy Pistons, the Celtics, to, all right, everybody versus Jordan now.
Okay, but in that's fair, especially with LA and Chicago or LA and Boston. What about Seattle? Some of those teams with Gary Payton,
yeah,
Sean
I mean,
Kemp,
look,
Devin Shrimp.
Again, I'm not saying that there weren't
the Knicks teams that I mentioned. I mean, yes, that torch was passed, but that doesn't mean that there weren't 3, 4, 5 other title-worthy teams.
No, I agree with you.
The Utah teams.
It is. Utah, I think Utah was Stockton, Malone, and a collection of trash for so long until the second part of that back-to-back three-peat when they started adding better.
They started Greg Ostertag in Game 3. There was nobody else on those teams except Hornacek, and he was a great defender. He wasn't a great scorer.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, I agree with you there, but that's not to say that they weren't title-worthy. They had 2 Hall of Famers. I mean, hell, that's all it takes in the NBA now, right?
Well, sure.
You need 2 Hall of Famers, and we're a contender. Like, people think Brooklyn's going to contend next year. I mean, they got 2 guys.
The crazy thing about now is I don't even know that you have to have multiple guys so much as long as you have the right one guy. Because if we're talking about Brooklyn as I don't know, someone just not on KD's level. Let's say the warrior they got was Klay Thompson. We're not talking about them contending the way they are with Kyrie and KD. It is so much about, do you have an elite level superstar, like one of 5 dudes, and then do you have someone in that 5 to 20 range to complement?
I think supporting cast matters a lot. I mean, you look at
I
that.
Agree.
You look at you look at that Milwaukee roster, and I think 2, 3, and 4 on that team are, I think they're a lot better than people give them credit for.
Yeah,
Now they have the one, but I think they've also built around that one as opposed to let's just go see who we can get.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely supporting cast matters, and I think that bench matters a decent amount. But in the playoffs, what you really need, and I think what we've seen over and over again, is like a tight rotation of 8 dudes that you can rely on. I think part of what has held Boston back for so long is even deep in the playoffs, they're trying to go 11 deep off of their bench, and that's not how you win 7-game series.
Well, I think what's also super interesting about this, the supporting cast part, there seemed to be, especially in episode 2, a very underscored, underlined, bold-faced, hey, Scottie Pippen is the second is really maybe the reason Michael Jordan went from a guy who could get the team to the playoffs to a championship contender. And even in the documentary,
Jordan said it.
He said he's my favorite. He's my favorite teammate of all time. He's my best teammate.
He said he's the reason I won these championships.
Exactly. So the supporting cast, and that's why, I don't know if a lot of people remember at the time, and I guess they sort of show some of the old ESPN and NBA day footage or show footage they had of how much the importance was of Scottie Pippen, how underpaid he was at the time, that going into that 97-98 season, that Jordan had to do a lot of the work early and for a long time by himself, seemingly by himself, because the guy who had helped be his dude for the first run of that was very much pissed. He was pissed that he was only making a couple of million a year, and that's also because
2.8.
He signed a 7-year deal for $18 million.
And Pippen did that because he wanted to help his family. He needed to help his family. It was front loaded, and he was able to do that. But Jerry Reinsdorf is right. You signed the deal. We got your name on the contract. Reinsdorf admitted, I wouldn't have signed it if I was him. But then you kind of ask yourself the question, why the hell did you give it to him? Well, because he's a businessman, not a basketball player.
Right. Sure.
So, everyone understands Pippen's frustration, and what's maybe the coolest part, and this is just another like small branch or tentacle off of this whole thing that is amazing. What makes that aspect of it cool, and I've already heard, like I talked to Tom Hart today, he hated episode 2. He's like, I was falling asleep. I didn't need it. I was like, no. You needed to set Scottie up that way. People needed to know what he was, what he meant, what he did, and how some of that happened, because that's when all the front office started going haywire. Because Jordan could have kept telling Krause he needed to lower the rim to go shoot layups with him, and nothing was going to happen. But until Pippen started going personal on the bus, that's when things behind the scenes completely got out of hand. And that's when Jerry Krause said, you know what? Here's the book. I'm going to close it. You guys got one more chapter left. Enjoy it. I hope it's a good read, because after that, I get to put the book back on the shelf and you guys are done. Unfortunately, he had that power, but we know now that he did. The cool part about it is, think about how far player power has come in the last 3 years?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw the best running back in the NFL go home. He went to the crib. He didn't play. He sat his ass at home. The best running back in the league at the time said, nope, not enough. I'm not doing it. I'll go home and I won't play. We've seen other guys force trades. We've seen other guys hold out. Player power is at its peak right now. In all of sports, across the board, player power is at its peak. And to look back at what Scottie Pippen kind of tried to do, we know what he was really doing, but he just didn't do it in a forward-facing fashion like some players today are doing it. But Mike knew what he was doing, because Mike said it. He said, I didn't appreciate it. I thought it was selfish. I didn't like it. But he knew I can get us through till he gets back, and then we'll see what we can do again. But that's another cool part of this, is that player power is at an all-time high, and Scottie Pippen tried to pull a player power move. And it technically didn't work for him because he had to go finish his career and make his real money somewhere else.
Demetri, let me start with asking you about Jerry Krause himself. Very much not coming off in the best of light in the first 2 episodes.
Sure.
He's the punching bag of the documentary. I think that's safe to say.
Well, I think, Cole, when you talked about Scott Van Pelt, the one thing I learned about watching Scott Van Pelt is the Jackie McMullen story, which was that the players used to call him Crumbs because he would have crumbs all over his shirt after he would. And I was like, wow, these guys are major dicks. This is what these guys are.
I don't know, though, man. I mean, I don't know that you can do that kind of stuff and be as, they talk in the first episode about how much Jerry Krause sort of suffered from the little man syndrome. I don't know that you can walk around with that attitude and not constantly be aware of what your image is with the guys whose money you're controlling.
Well, like, one of the things was what Michael Jordan said, like, hey, do you want to come shoot layups? And he said yes. He said yes back. And
Yeah.
And then Michael Jordan said, and I had to lower that limit for you.
Yeah,
But you also, as someone who is in that position of power, don't go to one of the greatest coaches that the game has ever seen.
Oh, sure.
And tell him a year in advance, this is it.
Yeah.
You're done. And the best tweet of everything that came out last night was Damian Woody when he said social media would have never let Jerry Krause rip this team apart. And that's the honest to God truth. It would have never happened.
I think it was was it Katie Nolan, baby, who said that the only person watching this right now and wishing Jerry Krause was still in the NBA is James Dolan. I thought that was great. But along the lines of social media, how great was it watching people discover A, Scottie Pippen's voice, and B, and this comes from living in North Carolina, I'm so happy the world got to see the Roy Williams we all know up here.
Well, you may have an affinity for Roy, but you're not.
I mean, I'm not a fan of college basketball at all. But Roy has always been kind to me, and anytime I've ever talked to him, it has been that same dude you're getting on the documentary there.
That was a giant leap into the documentary of, look at me, look how responsible I was for Michael Jeffrey Jordan when we know damn well he had nothing to do with it.
Oh, I also really loved Michael Jordan saying, we went to we were a clean program, did things the right way, and I'm sitting there thinking, really, there was this whole thing about how your entire school absolutely does not.
Cole has a little bit of a colored set of lenses looking at Roy Williams.
We don't need to go into that. That's been documented many times.
What did Roy Williams do to you?
He was snubbed as a child when he wanted an autograph when they were at the Legacy Arena at the BJCC. He went to go watch. And
I just wanted a photograph, and I went to watch Jacques Vaughn and Rafe LaFrance and Scott Pollard and those guys practice, and Roy's walking off, and I was with a buddy of mine and said, Roy, can we get a picture? And he walks right past us. 4 feet later, there's two chubby women in Kansas gear, and they ask him for a picture, and he stops and walks right over and takes a picture with them and keeps on walking. So good for you, Roy Williams.
Dadgum, as Roy would say.
Hey, what do we make of sort of the way this power structure was sort of going into that 97-98 season? Cole, you just mentioned that Jerry Krause had literally said, hey, you got 1 year. And Phil Jackson echoed the same thing. He said, hey, you said this is the last year, and no matter what happens, we're done. And Phil Jackson was okay with it because he hated Jerry Krause. Jerry Krause is okay with it because he was already grooming somebody else to be the next head coach and thought it was going to be the next head coach going into that season.
That was a genuinely strange revelation, I thought.
Yeah, I thought the power structure there, and I think it was brought up early in maybe episode 1, that the 97-98 season was so supremely interesting because Phil Jackson said we were a bunch of guys people wanted to know about. We were a bunch of guys that people wanted to act like, people wanted to see. This whole team was like a circus. He didn't say circus, but it was like an extra event. It was different. The way this Bulls team is different than, let's say, like the Warriors team now. Like it was a traveling sideshow, so to speak.
Yeah, we go back to the celebrity portion of what we talked about earlier. Some of the footage of people standing outside arenas waiting for Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant to walk 17 feet to a bus, and they're out there for hours. People aren't doing that anymore. That doesn't happen in real life anymore. Nobody's going to an arena and standing around for 5 hours to hope to see a guy for 7 seconds walking onto a bus to ignore him. That does not take place in this day and age. And that again, that goes to that mythical folk hero status that this team, and I'm not going to say they're the only ones that ever got there in this age. There were other guys, other athletes, other teams that got there in this age, and not just in the NBA, but in the NFL. I mean, you think about some of those 49er teams. You think about the 85 Bears. There have been other teams in other sports that have ascended to similar heights because we didn't know a lot about them and we wanted to know everything about them. This Bulls team just happened to have the greatest star athlete on the planet and potentially of all time. When you bring everything into it, how he exploded from an advertising perspective, how the league was then built around him, how the team was built around him, and he was in a major market that was hungry for success in something other than football.
And also how sports in general were built around him during that time. I think you got a really good idea of that in the videos from France, the McDonald's championship. I thought it was really interesting when his younger teammates are celebrating this just demolition of this European team they play.
And he's pissed.
He's pissed. He said it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But at the same time, everybody else that was considered a headliner on that team, and granted, nobody was what Michael was, but everyone else that was considered a headliner on that team skipped the trip. But Michael is so, I think, addicted to competition and winning that even though he is very adamant that this doesn't count, he is not going to give up seeing his team with the higher number at the end. He's not going to give up the TV appearances. He's not going to give up. And granted, part of this probably had to do with his deal with McDonald's, but he wasn't willing to give up any of that. But he's still pissed that his teammates are excited about winning it because it doesn't matter to him.
And I wondered too, Demetri, is he maybe personally more of a brilliant marketer than we give him credit for?
Yeah.
I wonder if he knew what was happening with his brand, if he discussed what was going on with his brand and where he was going from an advertising and marketing. And let's not pretend like he wasn't living in the marketing advertising capital of the world at the time. Chicago might not be that now, but then it was. That's where advertising was born and lived at that point in time. There's a whole streetway that's named after it. So I kind of wonder sometimes, did Mike know what he was doing a little bit? And he knew he needed that trip from a global branding perspective, and that he would reap big benefits from that. He needed people over there to buy his shoes. He needed people over there to want to buy Hanes and want to buy Wheaties and want to go to McDonald's. That was all going to benefit him in multiple ways. And we don't know that because we never heard him talk about it.
Yeah, I mean,
never been forward-facing about it.
It's the same reason that Kobe Bryant was the first NBA star to really put an emphasis on, season's over, I'm going to go spend a month in China.
Absolutely.
Right?
Brilliant.
These guys know what they're doing. And to Michael specifically, we can talk about the shoes, and the shoes are going to be the lasting legacy of Michael Jordan, I think even beyond the championships. But I think there is something about a dude like that recognizes when you have an ad campaign built around people in this country want to be me, it's time to, the only thing to do to expand the brand is to get out of the country, is to see where else you are viable. And I think Michael Jordan, and to a way lesser extent, Tiger Woods, are two of the only people that can have experienced that. I mean, I guess LeBron at this point, but at this point, the basketball shoe market is such that I don't think there is a single dude anymore who carries things the way Jordan did then, because, Harden has his shoes. LeBron has his shoes.
He benefited from some other things too. And where the league tried to get in his way, the league may have given him the biggest liftoff of anyone in history when they banned his shoe from being worn in the game. And it was a $10,000 fine per game that Nike agreed to pay.
Yeah.
And what do you think every TV broadcast talked about at the time? Yep. What do you think Sports Illustrated was writing about? What do you think was making – Jordan's wearing those shoes. That he's not allowed to wear them. He's wearing them again. That's $10,000 he's got to pay. That's the most free marketing that any shoe company has ever gotten.
I mean, think about the Dream Team, right? They're all on the medal stand, and everybody is there.
The Reebok.
Yeah, Reebok Warbucks. He had that black band. Yeah, I mean – there were a lot of things that just worked out perfectly every time it was necessary to take the Jordan brand to the next level, to the point now, even going back to 98, right? Did you ever think you would see a day where you have schools whose uniforms are not Nike, they're Jordan brand?
It's insane.
One of the most interesting tweets I did see was of my guy Patrick Ewing wearing his Georgetown polo, but it had the Jumpman logo.
Yep.
And someone said, "Well, if this isn't show of dominance, the guy you beat for the national championship in 1982 is now coaching that same place where you beat him and now wearing your logo."
I will tell you. So my wife went to Georgetown, and when we go to D.C., we always swing by the student store to pick up something for her. There are no swooshes in that store. It is all Jumpman. And the same is true at UNC. I would venture to guess, Cole, you've been there more frequently than any of us. I would venture to guess the same is true in Gainesville. I mean, that brand is part of the Nike family, but it is so not anymore.
It is its own entity, and there's no doubt about it. And I think schools like Oklahoma and Florida that have we obviously see what Oregon has done, even though they still wear the swoosh, but with Jordans and how they come up with their own colorways. Michigan, Florida, Oklahoma have had their own colorways of different Jordan shoes, and that is a gigantic boost in recruiting.
Yep.
You can go take a recruit, a Jordan 11 Concord in Oklahoma colors or Florida colors that they know they're not getting anywhere else, and they might get that when they go there. All of a sudden, interest is peaked. I'm not saying it makes their decision for them, but the interest level skyrockets. I want to go back to one thing quickly because I think we might get away from this and lose this. You guys were talking about, Pippen and Krause and how it ended and what he did before that season. I wonder if there's a portion of how Pippen began to act in the middle of that season or the first third of that season, that was his inner anger coming out at Jerry Krause for him delaying that surgery and not knowing at the time that it was going to be the last ride. And then it was too late once he found out and he knew he was going to miss half of it. And all of a sudden, he's extremely upset with Jerry Krause because he's like, hey, man, I wouldn't have done this if I'd have known we only had one more go at it. If I'd have known I had one more full season with my guys and my coach and MJ, I wouldn't have had the summer of Pippen, which, by the way, I think we needed 30 for 30 just on that summer because it had to be pretty damn good if he decided to miss half a season for it. But
I had
wonder
a buddy
how
that
much
said there's nothing more humanizing about any sports star ever than knowing that Scottie Pippen had a summer of George.
I wanted my summer. I mean, that's what he said. But I wonder if that was Pippen mad that he waited, but when he made the decision to wait, he didn't know they only had one more go at it. And then when he found out, it was just a giant FU to Jerry Krause the entire time because he's thinking to himself, look what you made me miss.
Yeah.
This is it, and you made me miss half of it. And that was just him taking it out on Jerry Krause.
He was going into that last year of the contract, and I think his quote was, I wasn't going to fuck up my summer.
Yeah.
Which is great. He was like, no, I'm just go ahead and get this done at the beginning of the year. Listen, I'm only making a couple million here this year. You guys figure that out. Hey, before we get – I don't want to get too far from this because this may be my most salient question about this entire thing, which is when I heard that there was going to be a 10-piece of Michael Jordan docuseries and Michael Jordan was going to be a part, the one question I had was how open was Michael going to be?
Yeah.
Like how much was he going to be like advertising Michael? Was he going to be McDonald's Michael? Was he going to be a Jumpman Michael? Or was he going to
interview Michael?
Or was he going to give us the Michael that we wanted? And so from the first two episodes, I guess I'll start with you, Cole. At least for me, I'm pleased with the Michael that we're getting. He's got a bit of a dirty mouth, by the way, but I'm pleased with the Michael that we're getting so far.
And it's going to get better. I don't know if you guys have seen the previews for episode 3 where Rodman is saying that he needs a vacation in the middle of the season. And Phil Jackson has to come tell Jordan that Rodman wants a vacation after Pippen has returned to the team in the middle of the season. It looks phenomenal. So I think this is more MJ than I anticipated, and not just more camera time, but more of his personality coming out. Hearing him talking about his brothers, hearing him talking about his dad, hearing from his mom, hearing his teammates talk about him and him talking about his teammates the way that he did. I mean, you see the leadership from Mike when he talks. He's not afraid to tell you, I couldn't have won these titles without Scottie Pippen. But then it's on the other side, he's saying, I was pissed. He was selfish. I didn't like it. I didn't like what he was doing. So there are very few guys in life that can balance that out and essentially be able to give you the middle finger and tell you how much they appreciate you and just stay right in the middle of that. That's very rare. And Michael Jordan has that personality to be able to pull that off.
Yeah, it is interesting. The end of episode 1, where his mom is reading the letter home from college, not just his mom reading the letter, but him reacting to his mom reading the letter. There was a part of me that was almost a little bit turned off by that, because for so long, I think it's been portrayed as the real Michael Jordan is the one we saw at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And one of the things you're getting out of this, I think, is there is no one real Michael Jordan. Like the guy in front of the cameras is every bit as real as the dude in the locker room, because image has been such a big part of his life for so long. And that's not to say that the reaction to his mom was not genuine, that he really didn't get a kick out of hearing her read this letter from a guy in a completely different stage of life than he has known the majority of his life. But when I first saw that, I thought, this feels like something that Jordan asked to be put in, or someone around Jordan asked to be put in to humanize him. But as you watch more of this, and I have seen that preview you're talking about, Cole, you realize that I think Jordan is Jordan all the time, and he recognizes that there is just a sort of time and place for every part of his personality to come out.
I agree. And I think also, to piggyback on that, who is he?
Yeah.
The real Michael Jordan. And that goes back to what we started this with. We haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen a lot of who he is. There were no Instagram stories. There was no TikTok. There were no reality shows when Jordan was floating around doing this that followed athletes. Mike knew how to handle himself in front of the media. And you saw how much Belichick Brady did you see in his interviews? In episode 1 last night when he slept, you're going to have to ask Scotty about that.
Right.
I'm not talking about Scotty. And then he looks over. You saw Nick Saban in him. You want to talk about the game? Do you have a question about the game? If you have a question about the game, we can continue this interview. And the guy asks him a question about the game, and he says, good job. See, there you go. Wasn't that easy? Like, all of these guys that handle themselves, whether we want to say it's like a dinosaur or like an a-hole or rude, this ultra-professional, super focused, blinders on athlete, coach, interview people that we talk about, Jordan was that before any of them.
Yeah.
That's how he handled himself. And so personally, that's the guy that we know, because we know he's not Wheaties guy. We know he's not Gatorade guy. And we know he's not holding Mars Blackman up by his head in a commercial guy. Like, that's not who he is. He's not Space Jam guy. We don't know who Michael Jordan is. And that's why this access is so cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a little pushback here. I think he is Space Jam guy. I saw his arm extend in that playoff game that he put up 63 against the Celtics, and still lost, by the way. Suck it. That's for LeBron lovers out there.
I mean, all we know for sure is that he is uber competitive, right? Like the story about who was the camp he showed up to, Chris Paul's camp, right? Where Chris Paul says that if Jordan misses, he's going to give Jordan 10 shots in a row. Buy them all shoes. And George's line was bleep them kids. And there is there's stories about kids running up on him in like an arcade in the mall at their birthday party, asking him to play skee ball with him, and he just dominates him. Like, the one thing that is constant about every Jordan story is he is uber competitive. And I do think that whether or not Roy Williams' story is genuine, it is a good encapsulation of who Jordan is when Roy Williams says, he says, I worked as hard as everyone else in high school, and Roy Williams says, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you wanted to be the best. Like, that is a good encapsulation of someone challenging Jordan, and Jordan going all the way to say, oh, you're going to challenge me.
And even further back, and I didn't know this, maybe Jordan diehards did, but and for somebody who is about to have their third child and already has a son, and it might be another boy, we don't know. That's the only thing I could think about when I heard this. But for him to sit there and look into that camera and say, this competitor that you guys talk about, this competitiveness, this drive that you guys talk about, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my brothers.
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't have to fight and scratch and claw, and I didn't have to compete against them for my dad's attention, I would not be here right now. There would be no Michael Jordan. There would be no all of this would not be here. I did not know that part of his life was that instrumental as to why he is what he is. And that was another part of, I don't think he's ever let anybody in there. He's talked about his dad a lot. And everyone knows how much his dad meant to him and what that relationship was like. But I haven't heard him open up about his brothers like that before and essentially credit them for having the personality that he does.
I would like to think that for Jordan, that actually applies both ways. His brothers and his brothers, like they're both the same, like they're black. And
very good. Walk that line of problematic.
You're really not going to laugh at that. Okay, final thing, because I do want to get Cole out of here because he's got, as he mentioned, a child on the way. Can we just point out Roy Williams in one really terrible sentence he mentioned in this? He said, Michael Jordan's the only player I've ever coached that had that switch where he could turn it on or off, and he never turned it off. So then, was there a switch or not? Was it if you couldn't turn it off?
He added something to it, like he never frickin' turned it
off. Yeah, he is in public. He's a big fan of the frickin'.
And everyone went crazy about that on Twitter, and I thought of it exactly the same way that you did, Arky. In that, well, how do you know he turned it on?
Right, there's no switch. There's no switch. He's just always on.
Just say what you meant. He was better than Tyler Hansborough.
Yeah.
By the way, if there's an underrated guy in the whole thing that needs credit, is it not Bobby Knight? Who coming out of those Olympics said he's the best basketball player he's ever seen?
Yeah.
Nobody else was saying that at the time.
Do you know the quote that when Bobby Knight was asked by Houston who to pick number one? Do you guys know that quote?
No.
I don't think so.
I think Houston called Bobby Knight and asked, so who should we take number one? Because he, obviously coached that Olympic team. He said, Michael Jordan. And Houston said, well, we need a center. And Bobby Knight said, well, play Michael at center.
Play him at center. The obsession with 7-footers.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. The fact that they lead the whole thing off with that was like really framing.
Mark Eaton was more valuable to those guys than Michael Jordan was at the beginning of that documentary.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Yao Ming was available in that draft? People would have given him half their franchise in stock.
From a movie making standpoint, that was so key to establishing what you are going to see changed everything about this sport.
That was the beginning of The Blind Side, talking about how and why the left tackle became important in reverse. It was how and why the 7-footer went to die in the NBA. I mean, it was, hey, we got to have a dude that can't run, that can't move, whose knees are going to be broken, but by God, he can stand in front of that hoop with his hand up, and you're going to get in people's way.
So the sequel to this is going to be a 10-hour Dirk Nowitzki series about the way the 7-footer becomes relevant again is shooting three-pointers.
I do like at the like they're talking to Mark Eaton on it. He's given this I don't know in today's NBA. I mean, really, I don't know if a guy like that can do it on his own kind of thing. And then the next 13 years of him doing it essentially on his own with a little Scotty.
Amazing.
All right, Cole has to go because he's got a baby. Cole, you really don't know what the gender of this baby is?
We don't know.
Wow. What did you knew the first two, right?
We did know the first two, and we don't know this one. The anxiety didn't hit me until yesterday, and I just started thinking, wow, we don't know what this is going to be. That's just wild. So I can't wait. I'm super excited about it.
Have you narrowed it down to 2 or 3 possibilities?
It's going to be a boy or a girl. Yes.
Okay.
Two possibilities.
Interesting.
Yes.
Wow. How unwoke of you.
That's not what I had in mind, but fair.
Did you guys make that decision because you had one of each already?
Yeah. I think if we had 2 girls or 2 boys, or if this was our second again, I don't know if we could have done it. The fact that we have one of each, and we found out beforehand for both, and this is probably going to be our last, it was kind of a no-brainer, really.
Oh, really? So in that case, it has been hard for you not to know.
Not until the last few days, and it's kind of. And obviously this coronavirus pandemic has helped because I haven't been able to go to any of the appointments. So I haven't been able to peek at the ultrasounds, and they're trying to get her out of there as fast as humanly possible. So it's heartbeat, good, cool, you're out. Like they're not like looking around at anything. So
Yes,
it's been.
I wrote about this today, and I didn't even think about the medical field. Like, how much have we been like just exposed to? Everything we were told was necessary is just utter bullshit. Like, as long as the baby's heart is beating, get on out of here.
You're good. See ya.
Yeah. All right. Well, Cole, best of
Thanks,
luck.
guys.
Super
Enjoy
awesome to
this.
talk to you. Yeah, maybe we do it after the next two. Who knows?
I'm happy that you got 15, 20 words in on your podcast, Arky. That was a great job by you. So
most of them is this part right here. I just want to talk about the baby.
Okay.
All right. Cole, appreciate it. Cole is saying goodbye. He has exited out, and we'll wrap this thing up here. So by the time you're hearing and or seeing this, because we're going to see what the video looks like, see if it looks good at all for putting up.
Yeah.
Dude, Cole's probably going to have another baby.
I've told him this before, and I mean it. His son has the coolest name on the planet.
Judge
Cubelic. I mean, if he has another boy, there's nothing that's going to come close to Judge. Dutch, maybe?
See, now Dutch
Cubelic.
I feel like I'm competing in that for my son's name. Like,
yeah.
We're going through names right now, and like, well, I'd be like Landon. I'd be like
Landon, no. Ace Shea.
Landon's someone. I shouldn't even say what I'm saying. Landon's someone's going to be a florist the rest of their life. That's what. So we'll wrap up this on. Oh, by the way, we should mention that our first live broadcast is going to be tonight. So tonight, as you're hearing this at 6:30, we'll be on Facebook Live. I will basically be doing just what we did now, just talking. But we have a couple interesting stories that we haven't had a chance to get to yet because, well, Michael dominates the news.
Branch Bartlett.
Branch. I've been coming up with one of the things that I've talked to about with Mrs. Arky is I've said, how about, because she's looking through all the name websites and and books and stuff. And by the way, in the name books, all the names mean something really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, none of them are like total shithead. Mariah, total shithead.
What about little Haas Bartlett?
Haas, I've thrown out there. I actually have thrown out there.
Yeah.
Haas. But one of the things I told her is like, you know what? Let's try to come up with something different. Like what's Rondo? Right?
Yeah, sure.
Right? What's Rajon Rondo? Come on.
Jalen Rose takes credit for Jalen becoming a common name.
He should, because everyone was into getting randy watching Jalen Rose play at Michigan. And all.
Sure.
Everyone's like, ooh, let's get after it.
Little Tex Bartlett.
Tex it, I'm like. So what I told her is like, I'm going to take a whole bunch of letters, and one day I'm just going to start putting stuff together. And so I'll give you a list of like 30 names that I just come up with, and they're not going to be normal names. They're just going to be names that we made up, and you see. Yeah. So there's probably going to be a lot of LOL Bartletts.
What about Clutch?
Clutch with
Clutch Bartlett. Yes.
Clutch
Bartlett.
We also had to consider, hey, this is one thing that Mrs. Arky and I go back and forth on a lot, which is whatever name we give the child, we should know that they will eventually have schoolmates.
Yeah.
Who will go for the easiest way to make fun of that name.
Yeah.
It's just a fact, right? Arky Shea. Shea is gay. It rhymes.
Sure.
It must be true. It's just easy.
I've
right?
got a daughter named Annie. I figure the worst they can do is Fanny, and we'll move along. Because, frankly, that's hilarious.
Oh, Fanny. That's just old school. I like that.
Indeed.
Yeah. It's so, she's like, the kids are going to call him what they call him by his name. I was like, I don't know if you don't know how kids work. You were a kid, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so our live show will be tonight. On Facebook. If you're hearing this, go add me on Facebook as a friend, Arky Shea. It's easy. You're subscribed. You can find it. What we're doing is I'm about to republish this old Arky Shea comedy Facebook page. Wow, that was something. And I am going to make it the Arky Shea Experience soon. So it's only got like 150 followers now because I shut that thing down real quick. And then we'll invite people to come become friends of the page, and eventually we'll start doing live shows. Excuse me, from the page itself. So get excited for that. But tonight at 6:30 Central Time, we will have our first live one of these bad boys. So a first live Arky Shea experience where you get me, you get Demetri, and who knows? We'd like some of your interactions. So come on, hang out with us. Yeah. And if you don't interact with us, then we'll just block you. So anyone who doesn't interact, we'll just delete you off the internet. That's all. I think that's fair, right? Just delete
Over the entire internet?
That's right. We'll dox them. Is that what it's called?
Wow. Dox them. Yeah, we'll swat them. We'll dox them. We'll do all the fun internet tricks.
Yeah. So also, by the way, you should know that we have new shirts up online. They should be at shirtsec.com. Get it?
Yes.
Really,
I get it. I'm hip.
It's really shirtsec.com.
Hey, whoa. We need plausible deniability, baby.
Securities and Exchange Commission.
There you go. We're huge fans.
No, we're not. But we are there to mock it.
Right.
So you should have 4 or 5 new designs as up there right now, including a Run AXP, much in the same design as Run DMC. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Hey, and also LSU fans, let them play neck. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I got to tell you, I really like that shirt.
So that's all the cool stuff we got going on right now. Many thanks to Cole Cubelic for being on with us. Who knows? Maybe become a whole thing. You know, the weird thing about Cole's like, dude, let me come on the podcast talk Michael Jordan. I was like, well, we're going to talk about Michael Jordan anyway.
Yes,
So
dude, don't you have a radio show?
Yeah. I think he likes us. So let's.
Oh, sure.
Is it wrong for him to like us?
No, why would it be?
It's not. It's not. Okay. By the way, Demetri, let me write this down so I can ask you.
All right.
Some other time. This is a good way to end the show with me writing down a note. All right. Demetri.
Yes, Arky.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you, Arky.
If all things go well, you can actually watch this episode on YouTube right now.
Ooh.
Yeah, who knows? That channel, by the way, is also Arky Shea. Demetri only gets a paycheck. That's all he gets here.
Hey, look, at least I get one.
Fair. That's fair. All right, that's going to do it for us. Demetri, from your humble abode in North Carolina, say goodbye to the good people.
Goodbye to the good people.